to me is really why the law of value is dead. So you know, there's a strand of thinking in Marxism that sort of tries to demonstrate that that value is a scientific concept, and that we can verify it empirically, right? So some of you may be familiar with Paul Cockshott is a guy who tries to do this, right? But if you read the methodology, it begins by, well, first of all, he takes an industrial economy in the global north. He's taking a Scandinavian economy. That's the only economy that he's looking at. And he begins by excluding a bunch of stuff from consideration, right? So he begins by, well, making a distinction between productive and non-productive sectors of the economy, okay? And then he shows you that for all the productive sectors of the economy, well, there's a high degree of correlation between labor content and prices of the commodities at the sectoral level or whatever, right? So, I mean, fine, but what is this supposed to do for us? Because if you look at it, one of the sectors that is excluded from analysis is the energy sector, okay? So what is that saying? Well, it's saying that the law of value is the scientific law of all capitalist accumulation. And if once we understand this, it's going to show us how history is going to happen. Oh, and by the way, we assumed away oil, right? I mean, yeah, fine, but don't tell me you're a historical materialist if you're telling me a story of the 20th century political economy that doesn't have oil in it. Okay, right? So yeah, you can say oil is an exception, right? And what's their response to this? Well, they say read Capital Volume 3, section on ground rent, right? Oil is basically ground rent, and what is rent? Well, rent is really just a parasitic distribution of value that is created elsewhere to other sectors of the economy, and so therefore it doesn't really matter. It's just, I mean, okay, but as Mitchell and Bitzler say, I think correctly, say, let's take a final example: the oil companies. Over the past 4 decades, the relative profits of these companies have had little to do with variations in the production of oil, and almost everything to do with oil's relative price. And the relative price of oil, in turn, has had little to do with supply and demand or abstract labor, and everything to do with global political economy in general, and the political economy of the Middle East in particular. So here, too, profit and capitalization are matters of politics at large, which means that oil assets partly capitalize government power. The conclusion then is pretty clear. If capital is a material economic substance, then the most we can say is that government does or does not affect its accumulation. But if assets represent capitalized power, then capital must be seen as incorporating government power. In that sense, the government has become part of capital. Okay? So what I want you to think about is the possibility that this labor theory of value view has got things backwards, right? Rather than begin by assuming that this is the law that governs what happens in capitalism, and this other stuff is an exception to it, I would like you to consider the possibility that the sectors of the economy where Paul Cockshott finds that the labor theory of value holds true are themselves the exception to the more general rule of which the oil sector is a illustration.